All right. Okay, very good. We're 2 minutes after. I suspect Chaim will be here. Maybe Sako. Um, Let me ping Sako real quick. And then Pratik is going to meet on Monday. This is finals week, but then Monday he's got time. So Garish, that gives us a little bit of time to refine some of the use cases that we want to, the test cases that we want to ensure that we've got results and insights for KubeCon.
Awesome.
We'll grab a time on Monday, but we do need to give some advanced consideration to what tests specifically. Unfortunately, some of the tests, even if we come up with good ones, some of the tests might not produce interesting results. So, but Pavan, if you're in the doc, we will let you record your attendance. Let me put the link to the doc. There he is. There's Chaim as well. Yeah. All right. Hey, my video would be up, but I've been in clamshell mode for like weeks, and I guess it doesn't want to come out of. Yeah, it's not working. It's too bad. Oh, there we go.
There you
go. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I can see you.
Good. I didn't even touch anything. It just happened.
You willed it.
Yeah, yeah. It was Chaim. No, good. Chaim, we can be much more jovial and interactive on this call. The last one, I don't know if the last one is a separate thing, but the engineer that had joined the call had an attitude problem, and so we were working through that. So
it's funny because we're Israeli, so we're attitude blind over death. So he seems very nice to us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was mostly getting it on the back end. So nice. Okay. Well, let's go share the meeting minutes. A couple of productive things to talk about. One being, jump in and edit the doc at will. But two, Pratik is going to meet on Monday with us. It's just finals week this week, so we'll do that. Later today, Prem Sankar Gopan, I think I pronounced his last name correct, he's meeting in just, Garish, is it just an hour after this? I think it's, yeah.
Right, yeah, it's right after this call. Yes.
Right after this call, one of the maintainers of Network Service Mesh, the NSM team, is going to meet and get started on their adapter. So they're gung-ho to get one going. As a reminder, we do have the KubeCon EU presentation on Wednesday the 22nd. I should probably specify the month there. So in a couple of weeks from now, two things that we might be presented fresh that haven't been presented elsewhere. One of those is some new test results, some new comparative results. I think for those that either watched or watched the recording of, or were there in person and sat on the panel, Chaim, it may or may not have been obvious to you that not everyone was really pleased with the results that were shown. Specifically, Mr. Morgan, who's a nice guy, bright guy, and his wit and sarcasm I think, help make the panels like that much more enjoyable for the audience. But I think in his mind, he had hoped for a little more of a divergence between. So I think that there are test results that will show a significant divergence between different meshes in different environments with different workloads and different configurations. Certain configurations for something like Istio, um, particularly around distributed tracing, it's very expensive if you're sampling a lot. It burns CPU. Um, but that won't, at least today, won't be an apples to apples comparison with Linkerd 2 because Linkerd 2 doesn't support distributed tracing. It doesn't do that expensive operation. So I think if William were here, I'd like to be able to say this to him because we're friends. But I would say you can't have your cake and eat it too, or like let's make sure that we're trying to compare as apples to apples as we can. Um, and I still, and Linkerd is going to be, obviously wins in a couple of environments, one or a couple of categories. One category being ease of install, another one being potentially their data plane being, slightly faster. I don't know that we'll see, and that's TBD, right? But I don't know that we'll see orders of magnitude difference in data plane speed per se. They're both, and actually, Pavan, I don't know if that's you, but Pavan, maybe if you'd mute for just a second while. But they're both user space data plane. I'm sorry, the data planes are both user space networking. And so I don't know that you're going to find, a dramatic difference. I think, in terms of data plane overhead and latency and speed, maybe not. I do think that you might find some decent differences, and I think this is probably obvious already, but decent differences between kernel level networking versus user space networking. So leveraging, BPF or VPP, which I believe is part of what the NSM that mesh runs, and which I believe is kernel space things. Or I'm a bit undereducated, but I guess my point is we might see some differences for some data planes for certain service meshes, but I think we're going to see a lot of similarities as well. So. Okay. Other general update is I think just understanding this is a very small audience that we're speaking to today, and it's just like a week and a half to 2 weeks out. There is a collaborative but behind closed doors initiative to create a service mesh interface, a common standard, a spec that would let tools like Meshery speak to different service meshes using the same API, the same specification, a common API that all meshes might adhere to. And so we're participating in that, and maybe we'll see a little bit of that compatibility later today, Garish, hopefully. And so more on that at KubeCon. To be announced around that initiative. It's not led by this community, but we've been asked to participate. So I think we're trying to. So Chaim, I guess just extra, or that only adds to any amount of reward that an Octarine adapter might receive at KubeCon is if it were, in this sense, we could help toward ensuring that the Octarine whether it technically is or isn't, I think it would benefit from that announcement of that service mesh interface spec.
Definitely.
And kind of the interchange, the affiliation, I guess. There's a Docker captain at last DockerCon. I really hadn't solicited much feedback or demonstration to Docker captains, but one of them in particular discovered the project and was excited. He went and contributed a PR to the landscape, which is good. And so he's asking how else he can participate. So that's good. With that, let me be quiet and I'll let you guys go around the table. And so I know we got them kind of in order here. I guess we'll just kind of, Sako, he said he was going to join in about 5 minutes. So Maybe Chaim, since you're here, maybe we'll keep going.
Want me to start?
Yeah, if you would.
Sure. So some progress during.
Hey guys, sorry.
There it is. Hey, hi, Sako. Very good.
Yeah, okay.
Good to have you, Chaim. Yeah, if you would.
I made some progress with the adapter last week. Not as much as I hoped for because I was traveling, but I really believe I can finish coding by the end of next week, which would be good because then we travel to KubeCon. So I won't be able to run tests enough to be able to present it. But I should be able to do some internal stuff with it by the end of next week.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Chaim, we've been known every single time a presentation is done to, well, for better or worse, iterate on the presentation all the way up until about 30 minutes before the thing. So if it works, we may have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. I can't commit because there are all kinds of commitments while we're there in Barcelona. So I don't know if I actually have the bandwidth to debug stuff in real time. But if we get it to work, that'll be great.
Nice. Okay. Makes sense. Any well, in Garish, maybe just since we did bring up service mesh interface here, as you reflect on some of the changes and augmentation within the Istio adapter, how significant of an impact is that to other adapters thus far?
Doesn't affect me much.
Okay.
Just little overlap between the Istio instrumentation and ours.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I don't see a.
Oh, nice. Okay, and I might have been asking the question in the wrong way, but Garish, for SMI compatibility, how divergent is that?
You mean? I'm sorry.
Well,
So, yeah. Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah.
I got what you said, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. For if you consider a more or less completed adapter like the Istio adapter, as we look at making that SMI compatible, or interface with SMI to a certain degree, recognizing it's a very young spec, how disruptive is that compatibility? Like how much?
You mean from the Meshery perspective?
Yeah.
Is that your question?
Well, yeah, or from like an Octarine adapter, from those who've written an adapter, like.
Right. So at least at the moment, though, I have tried to keep the SMI stuff we're specific to an adapter. Like, so for example, as of today, the SMI has one adapter. Again, their version. So when I say adapter, we have some overlap in the terminology. I'm talking about the SMI adapter, not Meshery. So SMI has an adapter for Istio, which is essentially, you can think of it as an implementation of their spec, which will really do the translation of their spec from whatever the CRDs which are specific to SMI into Istio specific one.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, since you'll probably see in the demo that I have kind of kept it associated with one adapter. So eventually, keeping fingers crossed, if there is one, if there is an SMI adapter for Linkerd, then we can include that part of our Linkerd adapter, and so on and so forth. That's kind of our initial plan.
That's very good, and that's actually why I'm asking, because we're just as Chaim is wrapping up his update, I was indicating to him that that could be the potential for a slight bit of rework to make, if he so chose to make that adapter SMI compatible, and just you having recently gone through that initial attempt for the Istio adapter, sort of if you had a sense of what that might look like.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, yeah, and just like what we already mentioned, it's I wouldn't even call it alpha. It's pre-alpha. Like people are just merging into master. Yeah, and they have just started with one part of the puzzle. I think they are just traffic splitting at this point in time. I doubt if they have actually gone into the other specs.
Yeah, that's not. Never mind. Yeah, okay. Nah, okay. That's what I'm asking is how much work was it thus far to augment the Istio adapter?
I'm sorry. Okay, it was very little work, in the sense I just had to. So, I mean, the way I usually approach stuff is I try to find a decent automation so that I don't have to babysit it every time there's a new version. But unfortunately, now there are two parts. One is this is it's a private repo, and the changes are coming at a drastic rate. So what I've done is I've tried to snapshot it, and I've generated YAMLs, and so I'm feeding it to our Istio adapter the way the rest of the parts are working. So the integration itself wasn't actually much work, but getting the idea straightened out, it took a little bit of time. Still, again, once that is matured, we will actually be in a better state. Now, given its current state, it is.
Okay,
I would
that's okay.
call it a monkey work at this point in time. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So very good. All right, over to you, Pavan.
I mean, well, like last week, I installed the VM machines in the Oracle VM box, the three of one master and two nodes, and install the Meshery inside the Kubernetes. But I had a discussion yesterday with Girish and said that no, we need to install Meshery in the separate box and need to test the Kubernetes cluster in the virtual box. So instead of spinning up a new VM with the Meshery, I started running off a script using Vagrant and runs the virtual box of Ubuntu, and so that the Meshery will be automatically installed in the Ubuntu machine. So I just write a small script and run it, but still there should be a small changes need to be happen to make the whole Meshery up in a through Vagrant file.
Okay.
I think I make. Let me share my screen, and so it's
yeah.
I will. That makes much different than what I talk.
Sure.
I think everyone is seeing my screen, right?
Yeah.
I have a Vagrant file over here, just the I'm installing the Docker and Docker Compose and the scripts for the Meshery start. And so it's once if I run this Vagrant file in the in my machine, it will create a Ubuntu box and with Meshery installed in that. That's the plan which I came up. So I have a Vagrant file over here, so I just go and run the Vagrant app, and so that it starts running off all the applications required for Vagrant machine of the Ubuntu 16.04. It's just some 3 to 4 minutes of time and stay. Yeah, here if you see here, we have an Ubuntu box already came up once it started the Vagrant file, and still we have few more configurations going on in the still it's running. Still we have as of now the Ubuntu box is up, and we have few more configurations like Docker installation is running. My apologies. Like I just took the detour like for configuring this file because it's not required. I can run a Ubuntu machine here and then manually run manually run the 3 commands for the Meshery. But like I thought to come up with a plan saying that like why don't I create a vagrant file so that it automatically creates the Ubuntu box.
Okay, gotcha. So thus far, um, you haven't quite finished trying to run Meshery against the Kubernetes cluster running in a Ubuntu VM running on VirtualBox.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. Got it.
So it's installing the Docker Compose and like till here we have everything is starting like the starting the Meshery now and like the mesh it's downloaded the Meshery from the gate and there is small issues like I can fix it like manually but like the thing is like in the YAML files we have a 3 version over there like what we downloaded but it's like it's supporting only 2.0 so if I change that YAML file to 2.0 it's working like just let me enter into the vagrant box I'm in the vagrant box right now and here it's the version 3 like if I change to the version 3 and make Meshery update like Meshery update like I can create all the Docker containers.
Okay. In this case, I think we're looking maybe the test being you to run Meshery on your local to your desktop or local to your laptop in that Docker container runtime, and then but run Kubernetes in a I guess in this case it's vague, a virtual box Ubuntu.
Yes. Yeah, I mean like that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like kind of out of topic of the testing, but like just I want to make sure that like how vagrant file work with the Meshery. Like if we come up with the vagrant file, so we can automatically install the Meshery in one of the vagrant file and we can test it like in the Kubernetes cluster.
Okay.
So I have an okay.
Nice, sort of like an all-in-one vagrant that has Meshery and single node Kubernetes. Or am I thinking about it the wrong way?
No.
Oh.
Like only the Ubuntu with Meshery.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
That's it from my end for this week. Like, I'll by weekend I won't be available. Probably by Tuesday I'll come up with the testing on virtual Ubuntu box. What how like how the adapters work fine in Kubernetes. I'll come up on an update either you or Kirish.
Okay, yeah, very good. Yeah, this is good to see that Meshery runs in Ubuntu. I'm not sure that we've done that before. So. Yeah, nice. Okay, speaks to the power of Docker. Oh, very good. Very good. Okay. Sako, I know you were giving some similar tests. As a matter of fact, I think a fair bit of compatibility testing had been kind of in your area.
Sure. Yeah, I can start for my side.
Please.
Basically, the week started that I started back to the OpenGov, to my DevOps journey, and it was nice that I shared the contribution that I shared in the Meshery channel as well with the team that because having seen OpenGov there also was nice for engineering team to
Yeah,
get
you're
excited at.
your rise to to famous things was like astronomical. I mean, just like the speed by which you did that was amazing. You took
Yep.
OpenGov from nothing to something in a week.
Yeah, definitely starts a discussion. We had a couple visa management also discussions, so I hope that more and more we'll be able to make the testing and stuff, because still it's also on the way.
Okay.
But definitely it's a good start right now. That's play, and that's the best tool for discovering before going really something that's gonna make it in long term. So that's one thing. Another thing was I officially got email from the Google for some other code. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
You're
There are some paperwork that I will go, but yeah, that's I get all the stuff.
you've been made you're a real boy at this point. So
yeah.
The internship is on.
Yeah. So and then I was going through the design document and through the code. I guess I will have more one-on-one with you and with Grish also, where mainly I should put my efforts. And for the regarding the task, Minikube, I confirmed that kind of write small how-to in the issue that I will confirm with you once I can make it more detailed about it and to run it, but it was able to run. So basically, the way I saw that instead of integrating, let's say, gcloud, for example, for EKS, we are using Okta, all this kind of stuff. We need to go with a machine user, like service account create. So idea is we have the service account, and then we take the secret, and from the secret we take the certificate and token from inside, and we generate new kubeconfig file which we can upload to Meshery and which is gonna work. So basically, for Minikube, it was just one line of code to make it, but for the GCP, it's a shell script that we run, which will create. It's also depending on the permission. We can maybe be more granular there, like when we create service accounts, do we want to give cluster-wide access, or we want particular that the Meshery like to install, or some we can also limit. My point is, at this point, it's just giving cluster role admin to Meshery that we can do anything with this configuration. And I tested with GSP. I just wanted to confirm with you. It should be the same way for the EKS. I will test the same thing.
So this, this brings up a good line of questioning, I think, around Meshery CLI constructs. Today, it doesn't ask you about environment, or it doesn't necessarily need to be CLI constructs. I mean, somewhere today, it's the UI that asks you about your environment. It says, "Where's your kube config?" But it may be more to the case that in the UI, it needs to say, hey, where's your kube config, and what's your what's your provider, which could be Minikube. In that case, it needs to execute a small script, or it needs to ask you to execute it. If it's GKE or EKS, and if it's these other platforms, then the other scripts that you're referring to that generate either, I guess they're not bearer tokens as much as they are cloud-specific tokens, IAM or GCP's token in addition to the kube config. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's more basically not cloud-specific. It's service account. So which is it's good that if you take this approach, because service account Kubernetes, if it's running, we are cloud independent. Basically, we will just idea is create a service account which has a secret, and from the secret we get this data, generate kind of new config file which uploads. So we can go with any. For example, if Azure come, we can do the same thing. But yeah, I just wanted to confirm with you guys that.
Okay, yeah. So I probably got confused. I think last time that we spoke to this, I think Girish, were you saying that? I think I interpreted that you were saying there was in the case of GKE GCP token that needed to be created such that the gcloud CLI could be used to interface with GKE or something. I probably
Right. Exactly. So, but the previous attempts we tried were actually using, like a normal user account. So the last time, like when I messaged Sako, I actually asked him if he can try with a Google Service account. I think that's what he tried, and it seemed to have succeeded now. So,
okay.
so yeah, I think like the service, because the service account, root actually I think has some other stuff where it doesn't try to initiate an authentication flow, while if it is a normal user it will. And when it will, the problem is it looks for a gcloud executable, and then even if the executable was found, which we tried last week, it asks for the next step, where it asks for specific credentials, couldn't be found in the right place or something. So yeah. This was a logical way to go, which is actually the right thing. And Sako actually tried it out, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Girish, we were discussing service account. We kind of had roughly idea that we could do, because the thing in gcloud, for example, Okta, that there is two-factor authentication involved. That it's kind of it's not for the machine stuff that Meshery can do. That will be still personal involvement, and then we will need to, let's say, build another authentication involved in the Meshery that user can confirm all this kind of stuff.
So you verify Minikube compatibility and a small flattening script of the kube config.
Yep. And Minikube, and I tested with GK. I installed through the Meshery the Istio, and but it should be for LinkedIn and stuff. I can do more detailed that stuff, but it should be good to go.
Okay, good to go with a service account.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. I could also see environments where you've got a platform team that says, wait, hold on, you want to use a tool against the cluster, go ahead, within context of the permissions that we've given you, your user. We're not inclined to give you a service account to do whatever you want to do. So it may be the case that we still need to go crack the nut on normal, regular cluster user accounts and that flow.
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Yeah. So, and maybe I'm confusing two things. Maybe what I'm doing is confusing between Kubernetes constructs, Kubernetes having the service account that we're speaking of, right?
Yeah.
And then there are cloud-specific accounts. So, are there different types of Kubernetes accounts? The initial account that you tried and got held up on, that was what type of account?
It's a service account. You were saying that, and then gcloud and AWS, they have their, on top of this authentication, that single sign-on, the different like AWS Okta. And the thing is, people using various things like authentication or IDC. So that's kind of different company using on top of this different thing to access the cluster and integrating with accessing, kind of trying to centralize the management to the cluster.
So what happens if a user can't get a service account provisioned by a cluster admin, a cluster operator?
If the user doesn't get?
Yeah, like let's say that you're operating GKE, you're the admin of the cluster, and I'm one of your tenants, one of your users. You've given me an account to sign on, a user to sign on to the Kubernetes GKE cluster, but you've limited my permissions to my own namespace, so I can bring up workloads and deploy things. But and then I'd like to use Meshery because I'm thinking of leveraging a service mesh for my workloads within my namespace. I think we need to account for that flow if we can.
Because currently we have the YAMLs where we install in Istio system namespace. As you said, if he has only limited, it will definitely not be able. So basically,
for Istio, yeah, and that's kind of an Istio holdup in general. Istio's got its own, but some of the other meshes don't have that, like, don't,
Namespace issue. Oh,
yeah, either the namespace issue or certain like cluster binding role, they don't have the same security requirements.
yeah, definitely. It could be the case. In this case, you need to kind of rename all the namespace that's using, and because we can install basically in default namespace. It shouldn't be a matter that it still is running as long as you label the another namespace where you want to inject sidecars. That's we can make it as a variable, maybe this as a changing the namespace. Like we can use Helm. I will say if you deploy it later that user can give as argument or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And what they would give as an argument is what?
Namespace they want to install it. So because we can define like in values file some default namespace is to your system, but they can overwrite it with whatever the values they want. But basically, we need to make these kind of things that as a variable, as a template, use some kind of templating.
So if a user isn't able to get a hold of a Kubernetes service account, what path can they take to use Meshery to deploy Linkerd or console or Istio? They need to, the user that they authenticate with through basically through their kube config, it will be assigned certain privileges, right? Or Girish, do you want to help re-articulate my question here?
So the challenge is that I think the fundamental answer to that question is like if the user has access to a Kubernetes cluster, but he is not able to get a service account to access the cluster with at least the same set of privileges he has at the moment, Meshery might not be able to work with it. Because of the extra authentication flows that come into play, and the way the Kubernetes integration is happening from Meshery is actually through the adapter. So the interface is with Meshery, but Meshery gives it off to the adapters to actually do the work. So at the moment, that is going to be tricky. I think this will be the case with any cloud provider. I presume, just like what Sako already mentioned, that it works with GKE. I'm still not too sure if it'll work with EKS until he's able to test it. So yeah, plus we'll have to get it tested with at least the popular cloud providers.
Yeah, the service account is able to work, right?
Correct. Yes, the service account can work. Yeah, because it's a service account, and it's not the user account, which will have all these extra authentication flows, which would, usually work. Yeah.
When you guys did use a service account, was that captured inside kube config, or did you have to do something else?
So it generated new kube config using this service account, and then we can upload it. So
okay. Yeah.
It's also good because if, let's say, in your kube config you have 10 cluster or 10 different environments, that you can be more specific to give Meshery only access to these guys. So rather than going more uploading all the config file and then trying to, you can mistakenly also can push it to some other environment that you don't want. So kind of it will also prevent these kind of things, I would say.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. So I guess yeah. All right. So for the time being, yeah, the documentation can be updated with the Minikube flattening export command, and then confirmation of compatibility with when you're using a service when you're using a service account that has well, is it that it has particular permission, or it's just based on the fact that it's a service account?
So currently we are giving cluster role admin that Meshery can install, deploy, and stuff. So just also one point mentioned here, it's the same way working the Jenkins and Spinnaker, all these kind of tools around. So it's a best practice for machine kind of things when they do synthesize a cluster deploy and stuff. So
I guess the right question to ask, or the thing to ask of you, Sako, is to identify the least amount of privileges that Meshery needs to be assigned, or the user.
I can discuss with Grish regarding it, so I will confirm that which resources, which verbs and stuff that we need, that because we can be more precise. I just didn't want it to limit in case we had some features that in case people use it.
It's possible that, particularly as this other service mesh interface, this other specification SMI comes forth, it brings a few new CRD, a few new custom resources, which, they too would need to be included in that privilege model.
Definitely, we can tune that part.
Okay. Nice. All right. Garish, over to you.
All right. Sure. Okay. My demo is not going to be a long one, and I'm not sure if it'll be interesting because I don't have a good example yet. I'm still working on it, but sure, I'll see what I can show. It'll be a quick one. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Share. All right. Okay, let's share the entire screen. So with respect to the updates, I was able to do some minor updates in Meshery. Some have a decent impact, some probably not. There was one Grafana time picker bug, which is still a work in progress. I tried to update the libraries, had some repercussions, and I had to fix them, but still, this bug still, wouldn't go. So I'm still working on that. So that's kind of the only one that's sort of I would say in progress. The other ones are more the multi-graph comparison. This is something which is very interesting one. When there are too many graphs, the graph looks messy. Sorry, when there are too many results in comparison, the graph looked messy. Try to clean that up a bit. So if I go to results, and now I think I have selected 5. Let's see if the comparison shows up. So you can see now that instead of going vertically, kind of diagonally, these are actually kind of flow into multiple lines, and they look definitely better. I wouldn't say it's still best, but it's definitely better than what it used to be. Maybe eventually it'll be valuable to actually add some restrictions as to not bring in more than 5 for comparison or 4 for comparison, something a good number. But I think if you go up until 3, I think it looks much cleaner. But there are no changes with 2 and 1 comparison. The charts are very identical. The other thing is inclusion of label here. So in the label, sorry, inclusion of the test name in the label. This is sort of what I try to say, which also makes it easier because with the same URL, you could probably be doing 10 tests or different types of tests. So I thought it's sensible to include the test name. So this is the first sort of it was a interesting time-consuming change. The other one is actually a progress bar. Now I cannot show it in that interface. I'm going to show it here. Even though it's the same thing, the only thing is this one is actually running off of my dev server. Again, this is a very initial version of the progress bar. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to kind of modularize it so that the progress bar is actually kind of a React component, and it is embedded in a single place across the board. So all the pages which need to invoke it can actually use the Redux store to communicate with it, which is kind of a good way of doing it, so that I don't have to keep doing it on every page where it's needed. So all the other pages just invoke one liner to call it and one line to turn it off. And the changes, again, if we want to change the position or color or anything, it's kind of centralized. So the only way I can show this is actually by using some breakpoints, which is what I'm trying to show in this interface. So you can see that like I've paused it. So you can see right now it's on the right. The reason why I chose that position, I mean, as a first iteration, I chose that position is that it's kind of it's at a fixed position. So even if the page scrolls, it'll still be in that same spot. And the page is in a responsive mode or in a mobile, it'll still show right beneath the user. Is kind of why I chose that. So if I actually just let it go, you can see like it'll instantaneously go away. So yeah, creating this as a component and integrating it, weaving it in all the right places was actually one of the other things. Of course, this is the first iteration. There's definitely more improvements that can be done there. The other one is the title in the top row. This is obviously something. This used to be one row below, and the reason for that is again, if you scroll, you can still see the title. So
Nice.
you would
Yeah.
not move away from that.
And the reason being is you just get more landscape to begin with, which you're not getting right now until you get rid of that second row.
Gotcha. So okay, cool. If we want, that was actually a question, which I thought we'll
Cool.
ask. Sure, I can get rid of the second line.
And
Cool.
then
So,
the toaster note or the spinner that you showed, actually at first it didn't really make sense necessarily that it would be up there, other than the fact that you were just describing you're kind of mid-flight on getting it there. It actually, it does make some sense to the extent that you're training the user to look to the upper right-hand corner for activity and
Right,
notifications. That what you might do instead is have a toaster notification that comes out is gray or is white or something that's neutral, but that does show like the fact that there's there's activity transmission happening. It's TBD as to whether or not it's good or bad, and the result is good or bad. That actually, and so that could be a way of leaving it up there, but doing it in the same model in which you're already communicating to the user.
Okay. Yeah, very good feedback. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I said, the good thing is now since it's a component, I can change it in a matter of minutes and it'll apply throughout the site. So yeah, cool, awesome. The other again, the minor changes actually. So if you go to the wizard, you'll see the wizard's title is slightly bigger. So and the asterisk will be slightly better visible than how it was before. So those are some of the minor changes that really happen in the UI. The other one was the Kubernetes YAMLs. I've been focusing much more on the Docker Compose than the Kubernetes YAMLs. Literally, the Linkerd adapter was left out, so I just recently updated that. And of course, globally, I've updated the Docker images, the base Docker image to build the executables to use the latest version of Go. So those were some of the major changes. And before I jump on to the next topic, which is SMI, so the other mention, which Lee already mentioned, is that discussion with the NSM folks, which is actually in the next 10 minutes. So now the SMI is just like what we mentioned, so it's a service mesh interface. So they are coming up with this specification and implementations, which will actually work with the meshes, but the operator just can use one common set of constructs. He doesn't have to know the implementation details of the mesh behind. That's the overall thing for this project, or the idea behind the project. So if we actually go to the playground now, so now right now I have connected it to an Istio adapter, and of course this Istio adapter is not yet pushed upstream, in the sense I haven't yet pushed it to GitHub. So this is a version that's working on my local. So I have added a new entry here: install service mesh interface Istio adapter. So essentially what this does is I have a bunch of YAMLs, which includes the CRDs, the service accounts, role bindings, and role bindings. And finally, the deployment for the operator. So what this does essentially is actually deploy an operator on the Kubernetes cluster. So if you guys can actually see, so this is a Kubernetes cluster, which I'm planning on using. So you can see I have Istio deployed, which is definitely one of the requirements, is to have the Istio deployed. And you can see the kube system namespace only contains the fundamental containers, and the Istio system contains all the components of Istio. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click that. Sorry about that. And I'm going to hit submit. Did I hit submit? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So I did hit submit. So hopefully in the next second or two, we should actually see an SMI come up, like, which I accidentally did it in the default namespace. So just a second. I was expecting it to come up pretty quickly. It usually does, but I think I'm probably connected to the wrong cluster. Okay, it does say that, like, it is. Write something. Am I on? Okay, just 1 second. It was working a few minutes back. I might have accidentally killed the STO adapter or something.
Demo effect.
Yeah, demo effect. Yeah. I'm not sure what's happening. It does say that, like, it actually deploy. You can see here, like, essentially that it did actually deploy the service account, the CRD service account. It says the CRD already existed because I accidentally clicked twice. The service account was created, role binding, and the deployments were created. I'm just confused, like, as to why this is actually not showing up here. But yeah, I mean, like, essentially, like, you can see that, like, it is actually constructing a YAML, and now for this to work, I mean, it worked, like, a few minutes back, but essentially for it to work, since there is no image for the container, like, I had to manually build it, push it to the layer 5 namespace, layer 5 Docker org, and I'm actually using that as part of this one. So you can see the layer 5 / SMISTL latest image. This is essentially a deployment for the deployment, like, which contains the controller and the manager, like, for the operator. So that's pretty much, like, I mean, I really wanted to actually show it here, but for some reason it's not showing up, like, yeah. But I mean, like, otherwise, like, that's pretty much, like, what I had to actually show you guys.
Greece, just on that command line real quick, if you did a get traffic split, we should see that custom resource, I would think.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, it looks like, I'm probably not either on the right cluster. Let's say I am. Okay, one more try. This time, like, let me see if I can just connect to the cluster again. And okay, the connection seemed fine. Sorry. Okay, did this work? Okay, this one says it does. Voila, there you go. Yeah, it's like, I think it was just a connection issue. So the CRD got deployed, and the PO right there. Okay, awesome. So you can see the deployment for the operator is now functional. So the CRD is shown. So I can actually do get all in the SMI name. So you can actually see, like, what all it did. Like, essentially, there's a pod running. There's a service that's created. Fundamentally, a deployment was created and a replica set is created. Like, so right now there's just one replica that's running. There was also a service account, like, that's created, just the SA, and you can see the SMI adapter STO. So yeah, so pretty much, like, all the components are there. Now all I have to do next is come here, go to custom YAML, and then, like, paste a sensible YAML, which will actually, showcase the SMI integration. Now the interesting part, like, or the part I was scratching about was this. Like, so this is the spec for the traffic split. So it says that, in order for this to work, like, where it says, hey, okay, you know what, like, so it's a traffic split kind of this particular API version. The entry service name is going to be foobar, and so here the backends are actually services. Now the way the destination rules in Istio work, or I mean, like, you can create you can create subsets in Istio by using destination rules. But I was initially under the assumption that this is going to, kind of work with the subsets in Istio. But if you actually read through this, it actually says that a deployment for foobar v1 needs to be created. A service for foobar needs to be created with, again, like, the app labels matching. There's an extra label version v1, and then there's also another service foobar v1 with the same set of selectors, like, need to be created. So now there will be two services for the same exact one deployment, and he's trying to actually work with that. So it's like every deployment needs to have a service, and there is an Uber service which can help with routing traffic to the other services. It's kind of how this is. It's not that we cannot do this with a Bookinfo app. I just have to add a few more services and get this going. But I was first initially planning on trying to see if I can just maybe deploy the destination rules and maybe leverage the subset concept with the traffic split, but I'm not too sure if it's
can you do that? Can you do that through the reviews service that has multiple?
Exactly. I mean, that's essentially what I'm trying to do. But the way the Istio's Bookinfo is deployed is there's one service called reviews, and then all the other ones are actually subsets. So
okay, if you go back for a moment, well, now I forget where we were. In this case, what we're doing is you're deploying an SMI-compatible Istio adapter using Meshery, but ultimately what we're looking to do is ensure that the Meshery Istio adapter is SMI-compatible.
Right. I mean, frankly, like I said, it at the moment it is. I just need a good example to showcase it.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Is it with no code change? It is, or?
So I mean, again, the way the Meshery Istio adapter works is that it just kind of hands over the YAML to the Kubernetes API server. So if I have a SMI YAML, it will do the same thing. So which means Meshery will definitely work without any changes required. The only thing that needed was actually the installation flow, which is what I have now. Again, I mean, this, like I said, all the other flows work. Even the removal of this adapter and all the pieces that it has deployed, works from the Meshery UI. So I can actually just go back here and click this, and then hit revert, and it'll actually remove all of that. I mean, so like I said, I just needed to connect that one part for the YAML again. So if there is a SMI YAML, that will work right from this interface.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I don't have a good example to showcase it, which I'll probably work on and showcase next week.
Okay.
Can you please go back to this example, this traffic splitting? So here, just service named foobar v1, and then is it mistype that they have here, or?
No, it's not. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to say. They have multiple services for the same deployment. Yeah.
But the thing is, in the example, they have service foobar, and then foobar v1 and v2, which is not in the uppers.
Oh, right. No, they have written about it, right beneath this, right there.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So because Istio has this same routing rule, what kind of differentiation point it has?
I think that's the subset part, which we were talking about. Yeah, it has this concept of subsets, which is created using a destination rule. Mm-hmm. And then once you have that in place, then we can actually use the virtual services to kind of do traffic shifting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So in overall, because I'm not into too much with SMI, what kind of addition it has on top of Istio's capability?
Oh, no, there's no addition. I mean, all this